Let's talk about software testing. When we hear that phrase, we usually picture someone just clicking around, trying to find bugs. But there is a whole world to it, something much deeper and way more strategic than just breaking things. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the core ideas of software testing and show you why it's so critical for just about everything we use in the digital world. All right, let's get into it.
So I want to start with a number, a huge number that kind of puts everything in perspective. $93 billion. Now, what on earth could that be? It's not the latest tech company valuation or a movie budget. Nope. It's something that affects the apps on your phone, the websites you visit, pretty much everything.
That's it. By 2030, the software testing industry is projected to be worth a massive $93 billion. So you see, this isn't some small, optional step in making software. It's a gigantic, essential industry that's all about one thing: quality. A number like that tells us that understanding the basics here isn't just for coders, it's for anyone who wants to understand how our modern world is built. Okay, so at the very heart of all software testing, it really boils down to two fundamental questions. They were famously laid out by the computer scientist Barry Boehm. Now, they sound almost the same, but trust me, the difference between them is everything. It's the difference between a product that works and a product that people actually love and use. To make this super clear, let's ditch the tech jargon for a minute. Let's just think about baking a cake. Not just any cake, a really complex, custom cake for a super important client. This analogy is going to be our guide, so keep that cake in mind. So here's our first big question. In our bakery, this is us asking, are we following the recipe correctly? Do we have the exact right ingredients? Are they measured perfectly? Is the oven set to the right temperature? It's all about sticking to the plan we were given.
This process has a name. It's called verification. And the key thing to remember here is that it's a static process. What does that mean? It means you don't even have to turn the oven on or run the software to do it. You're just reviewing the plan, the recipe, the architecture, making sure everything lines up with what was specified from the start. And now for this second question. This one changes everything. It's not about the recipe anymore. Now it's all about the client, the person who's actually going to eat the cake. We followed the recipe perfectly, but is this the cake they actually wanted? And this is called validation. Now, unlike verification, validation is totally a dynamic process. You have to actually run the code, or in our case, serve the cake. It's the final taste test. Does the product actually solve the user's real problem? Does the client absolutely love it? So here's the kicker. You can have a perfectly verified product that completely fails validation.
This table here really lays it all out, side by side. But just look at the target row. That's the whole ballgame. Verification is focused on internal stuff, documents, code, plans. But validation, it's focused on the final product in the hands of the user. You can follow a bad plan perfectly, and verification will say, good job. But validation will tell you the truth. All right, let's switch gears a bit. We all throw the word bug around, right? But in the world of testing, there's actually a specific story behind that word. It's a chain reaction that starts with a tiny human mistake and can end in a complete system failure. Let's go back to our cake. It all starts with an error. A simple human mistake, like a typo in the recipe. It says salt instead of sugar. That error then creates a defect inside the product. The baker uses salt, so now the batter itself is flawed. Now, if a tester finds this salty batter before it goes in the oven, they report a bug. But what if nobody catches it? Well, the client takes a big bite, and that, my friends, is a failure. So, how do we stop that cake from ever getting to the client? The secret is realizing that testing isn't this one big thing you do at the end. It's not a final exam. Quality has to be baked in, checked in layers, from the tiniest component all the way up to the finished product. Think back to that fancy multi-layered cake. You wouldn't wait until the whole thing is decorated to see if you used good flour, right? Of course not. You check the flour, you taste the batter, you check each layer of sponge as it comes out of the oven. Software is exactly the same way. So here are the main layers, and you'll see how they build on top of each other. We start small with unit testing. That's like checking each individual ingredient. Is the flour good? Are the eggs fresh? Then we move up to integration testing. Do the ingredients mix together correctly to make a good batter? After the whole thing is baked and decorated, we do system testing on the finished cake. And finally, the moment of truth, acceptance testing. That's the client taking a bite and saying, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. So, this entire layered process, this dance between verification and validation, this doesn't just happen by chance. It's all carefully orchestrated. It requires a master plan, a strategy that guides every single step.
You just can't wing it and hope for the best. To be efficient, to be effective, testing has to be planned meticulously. You have to ask, what are we actually testing? How are we going to test it? And, just as important, when do we know we've tested enough?
And that brings us to what's formally called test planning. Honestly, you can just think of it as the master recipe for the project's quality. This single document is the source of truth that makes sure everyone, from the developers to the managers, is on the exact same page about what quality means and how we're going to get there.
And all of this brings us to a really profound, maybe even a little counterintuitive truth about this whole field. It's one of the most famous sayings in software. Testing can only show you that errors are present. It can never prove that they're absent. In other words, you can never, ever prove that a piece of software is 100% perfect. You can only confirm that the tests you thought to run have passed.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If we can never reach perfection, if we can never prove a system is totally bug-free, then what does quality really mean? Well, it isn't about being flawless. It's about building confidence. It's about managing risk. And most importantly, it's about making sure that we are building the right product for the people who actually need it. Thanks for watching.